Hello, welcome to SCBWI Carolina's book Fairies First Look. And today we are interviewing Whitney Skeen. Hello. And I'm going to introduce Whitney with a little bit of background. Whitney grew up loving mystery novels. Her fourth grade teacher introduced her to her favorite childhood series, The Three Investigators. She went on to become a middle school teacher. After witnessing the emotionally charged and erratic world that middle schoolers navigate each day, she was motivated to write Vanished in Vista Point, a forensics 411 mystery, starring two precocious 14-year-olds turned amateur investigators. Today, Whitney lives on the North Carolina coast with her husband, sons, and the dogs that love them. Her latest novel, Felony at Fripp's Graveyard, is the sequel to Vanished in Vista Point and was released by Fox Press on January 25th. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
We're so glad to have you this month and feature you and your new book, your new release. So let us get started right in there. Tell us all about Felony at Fripp's Graveyard.
Well, it is The Secret to Vanished in Vista Point. It is for tweens and teens. I don't quite fall into that middle grade versus YA. I'm all the kids that are in both are my readers. My main characters are future forensic scientist Hank Boyd and his newly acquired best friend and also a newcomer to town named Hannah Simmons. Both are 14 years old and have come to consider themselves amateur investigators. They spent the summer solving a 35-year-old cold case, which is basically the plot of Vanished in Vista Point.
Right.
And all the local media have been calling them hometown heroes. And Hannah is pretty hopeful that by the time she starts high school, her dream of popularity is going to be realized. However, by the end of first period, on the first day of school, she finds out that that is not going to happen. Other kids do not seem to marvel at Hank's crime-solving abilities as she does, or watch his forensic videos that he posts online. In fact, most of the kids call him forensic freak, and they don't mean that as a compliment. So it doesn't take Hannah too long to decide she's going to choose popularity over him. And obviously Hank feels betrayed by that because she is his first, what he thought was true friend. But the local boatyard gets robbed. They're on the coast of North Carolina. And Hank secretly steps in behind his mother's back to help the local police chief, who also happens to be his mom's boyfriend. And he decides to help the acting police chief investigate in what turns out to be $1 million heist of electronics, outboard motors, and even one boat, which just so happens to be Hannah's family's boat. And that sort of draws Hannah's interest into it. And Hank hopes that perhaps the two of them working together to solve this mystery will rekindle the flames of their friendship.
Nice. Very typical of and you know this as being a middle school teacher, those kind of popularity versus true friendship type relationships. Yeah. Wow, that sounds so fun. In writing mysteries, what is the most challenging part of the writing process for you?
Well, it's self-created, unfortunately, for me, because I am not, they say that there's two kinds of writers, plotters or pantsers, and I'm more of a pantser. Even when I really try I have good intent to do a storyboard and chart everything out, I just get so excited to start writing that I just set that aside. And then about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through my book or whatever I'm writing, I kind of hit a wall, like that writer's block. And then rather than working through that writer's block, I decide to go back to the beginning and start editing. And I edit and I revise and I revise and I revise until something, in the story thus far stimulates me to realize, oh, that's where I need to go with this. But unfortunately, then what happens is I lose track of what I have and I haven't said in the mystery, what clues I have dropped. And more than anything, I end up dropping tend to drop that same clue in 3 or 4 different places. Or, in the in my role, in my process of revising, I move it from here to over here, but then I never took it over there, but then I also had it here, and it ends up being crazy. I have to do, a serious document search, and at that point I'm forced to go back and outline, okay, this is what's happened so far, and this is where I need to take it. But like I said, it's a self-inflicted wound that I get so excited.
But I think when it comes to novel writing, though, there's so much to keep up with. And I think, authors kind of approach that in different ways. I mean, I've got, if you could see behind us, a whole bunch of sticky notes that try to remind me that, that's that person's name, that's this part of that story, and that person does this. So, because it is a lot to keep up with. So, yeah, that I would say that was a big challenge for everybody. Is there anything that you kind of do other than like searching and then going back and outlining? Do you have any other tricks that you use for that?
I am a Post-it person myself. I like Post-its. I do mine on a poster board. I know I have a writer friend who she has just a long hallway, and she has index cards and Post-it notes the whole way down from one side of her house to the other. I do go back. I have a notebook where I keep all of the family trees, and kind of all those little things, like whose birthdays where, and what kind of shoes do they like and not like, and that sort of thing. And then I go through and I recap kind of for each chapter. All right, this is the main action, and this was the secret little clue I hid in there.
Yeah, that's very, very good stuff there. And you kind of have to keep up with everything like that. What was the most difficult scene for you to write in writing this particular book?
Actually, this particular book, I cheated, because typically for me, the hardest scene to write is the beginning.
Yeah, me too.
The beginning of the novel, because it has to do so much. If you don't give them a taste of the conflict and draw up some interesting characters and have it set in a neat place, they're not going to keep turning the page.
Right.
And so you've got to do all those things in a short amount of time without, doing the info dump and all that kind of stuff that we get warded off against as writers. This book, I cheated though, because my first book is all written in first person by my main character, Hank.
Okay.
And in the second book, I alternate. One chapter is from Hank's point of view, one is from Hannah's point of view. And we actually start, my second book starts with the last 2 chapters of my first book that we read from Hank's point of view. And so I cheated a little bit, and this time you have the same information, but with additional information, because it's all coming from Hannah's point of view, which I absolutely love about this book. It was one of my favorite things because obviously in the first one, you really only get to see Hank from his own point of view. And, none of us are very reliable narrators about ourselves.
Right.
And so this one, you get to see more of Hank from Hannah's point of view and the world from her point of view versus his, which is a little bit pessimistic sometimes.
Wow, I absolutely love that. One of the things I struggle with is how much of the other story, because mine is also a series. How much do you have to plug in case someone picks up that book first? But what you've done is kind of drawn them in, and not that's got to be one of the most interesting ways of going to the second book. I absolutely love that. That's great.
I'm excited
and fun, and I think people are really going to appreciate, the kids are going to appreciate getting that and kind of jumping in from that point of view. So let's, with SCBWI, and its members, a lot of times what people want to know is about publishing. Tell us about your experience with the publishing process, and what's your favorite and your least favorite aspect of publishing.
Publishing, that's like, it's the reward and the worst part of writing, to knowing that, to not knowing, but to be very tempted, I think, at first to write for somebody other than for yourself. And to, the hardest part is obviously to get a literary agent. And then they're kind of the doorkeepers for the publisher. So I mean, it took me 4 years to get a literary agent, but once I got a literary agent, it took her 4 months to sell my book. And so it was very difficult because I had a good many, probably 15 to 20 agents who asked for my full manuscript, which is nice, over the course of 4 years. And in between, I'm constantly revising and listening to what they say. But at some point, then it gets so confusing because one agent couldn't connect with my main character. And one agent thought that my main character was the heart and soul of the whole thing. And you have to balance out what they say, knowing the market, and what you feel in your heart about who your characters are. And I kept just deciding I took their advice because they're professionals, but I also kept a lot of those things that I truly loved about my setting and my characters and my plot, regardless of what they said.
Nice.
So definitely listening to your heart is a hard part. I also find the whole social media thing to be hard. I'm in my 50s. And so, I didn't grow up going to Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat to see what my friends were reading or to see what my favorite writer was saying about something. And so that's been very difficult for me to create that platform that, that the agents and publishers want you to have.
Right.
The best part about publishing, I would say, is when you get your advanced reader copy of your book or several of them, and you open it up and it's like when you see your baby's face for the first time, it's you're peeking back that blanket. You're like, I did this, I made this, and so that's so exciting for me. And to, I guess, also just when somebody says, oh, my daughter read your book and she loved it, she had to do a report, or somebody says something like that, that's great to me. I love that.
That's fantastic. Yeah, definitely a rewarding but difficult road, I guess, that we all travel as authors, but yeah, absolutely rewarding. Let's see, what advice would you give to someone trying to write their book or beginning this process?
One, don't give up. Find somebody who believes in you. I know my mother kept just saying, why don't you just self-publish? Just self-publish. You don't need an agent. You don't need, and I didn't want to. And there's nothing against that. But for me, I was just like, not having been a professional writer, I used to be a teacher. I felt like, okay, I'm going to trust them. And when a publisher and an agent want my book, then my book is good enough. And my husband all along, he kept just saying, just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it. You're working hard. It's good. You have a new version. I'll read it. So you need a cheerleader, and you need to got to cheer yourself on as well. And I think also Walter Dean Myers said it best. He wrote a book called Just Write. And you do need to just write. I have a couple friends who they have beautiful 3-ring binders of plots and character descriptions and outlines, and it's beautiful, but they don't actually write the book. And I kind of feel one of my, we were writing partners, and I think she was so afraid of, not doing everything that was in her mind justice on paper, and everything that was in that gorgeous notebook on paper. And I just said, you just got to write, and don't worry about doing it right, because it's not going to be right to begin with. And, and that's where my trap is. Once I start to get to a point where I'm stuck, I go back and I start fixing all those little things that I didn't say it how I wanted to say it, or it should have happened here. And I don't think anybody yet has written the perfect novel. So none of us ever get it absolutely right. You just have to get it right enough for yourself after your months or years of writing it.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not gonna all be right the first time. Your 7th grade English teacher was correct about that writing is a process.
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of liken writing to pottery. I mean, you start with this piece of clay and it takes a lot to get that lump of clay into something that's going to, like a vase or a plate or whatever it's going to be, a mug. There's a lot of time, a lot of working at it, a lot of changes, and the process has different stages. And so, yeah, I mean, when you start that first draft, it is really just throwing the clay onto the wheel, and you got a lot of turning to do to get it to where, it's going to be that published book. So, yeah, I absolutely agree that it does.
Well, and if you write series also, that part, the biggest thing is to know your character and know everything about your character, what they would do, what they wouldn't do, what they would say, what they wouldn't say. And I spent about 2 years working just on that and really honing in on who are Hank and Hannah and what do they want. And then once you do that part, then you just, then the series can really unfold, and you can focus more on plot because you
Right.
know what your characters love and hate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do character sketches too to
Mhm.
start out, and then add them as I introduce characters, and those change and evolve. And also with series, I think you get to know them so well that the characters start to drive more, and it for me anyway, it gets a little bit easier as you go from book to book, because you're kind of you're just in that story, or you're in that world, and it just kind of comes out, in the way that you've built it up to. So the first one's really hard because you're working all that out.
Yeah.
Then it starts to get easier. Yeah, for sure. Anything else that you want to, do you have any events coming up for your release?
Well, unfortunately, I have birthed 2 books in the time of COVID, you know? And so I've done some Zoom, some Zoom school visits, bookstore Zoom visits, and that sort of thing. I'm hoping soon that things will start to pick up as far as businesses being more willing to welcome people in. I did a book signing in October, but it was outside, just to kind of make everybody feel at much at ease as we can in these crazy times. So, and as I told you, I'm on a boat right now. Because my book was actually supposed to have come out in October, and with shipping delays and they couldn't get all the ink or something from China. I mean, it's just crazy. It ended up coming out in January. My husband and I have had this trip planned for several years.
Wow.
So we're just trying to make them both work.
Well, and it will, because like you said, right now we're in COVID, so things are kind of online anyway. But how can people reach you online? Where are you on social media?
The dreaded social media.
Yes.
I am on Facebook at author Whitney Skeen. I am on Instagram at WV Skeen. I am on Twitter at Whitney Skeen. And I have a website, which is whitneyskeen.com.
Excellent.
So that gives me all sorts of things to say. I have a platform.
And everybody that's watching can interact with you through all of those venues, and we'll have all of that written up there for everyone as well. Thank you.
And I will say, and I know some authors do and some authors don't, but I love doing school visits, being a former teacher myself, and I'm happy to do them via Zoom or Teams or whatever sort of infrastructure they have.
So teachers and librarians and things, they can get with you about that through your website?
Yes.
Great. Perfect. That's good to know. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for sharing. Anything else you want us to know before we sign off tonight?
No, I think I'm good. I hope everybody reads the book and enjoys it.
Oh, I think they will. It was a great storyline, and I just absolutely love the way you handle all that with the points of view. It just is genius. I love it.
I don't think I invented it, but
Yeah. But still, I'm excited about that. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much for being our first look interview this month. And we wish you all the best with both books.